Welcome back to The Explainer. Happy International Human Rights Day to you. Thank you for watching. The hashtag is The Explainer at Citizen TV Kenya and at Yvonne Okwara. And it's Happy International Human Rights Day as well to my guests, Diana Gishengo from the Institute for Social Accountability, Hussein Khalid from Vocal Africa. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Before we get into the state of human rights, because it's been quite a remarkable year in the clamor for that, I'd just like to first get your initial comments because, you know, incidentally, on this day, when there were people out on the streets of Nairobi protesting against gender-based violence, essentially speaking for their human rights, we saw what happened. Maybe just a round of comments. I'll start with you, Diana, on the events of this afternoon.
I think it's how low we have sunk. You know, you can be rock bottom, then you wonder whether there is bottom rock, because it's the International Human Rights Day. And across Kenya, people are in pain, a lot of pain for many things. But they decide for now, let's focus on femicide. Women being killed, women being battered, and then the same state and the police that the president direct that they must take all measures to protect women. In there, he threw around that women should learn how to do karate and things like that. But when they take to the streets to even express that enough is not being done, you meet them with brutal force. What wrong have they done? What is wrong with people going out to say, you cannot kill our women and girls anymore? You ought to protect them. There ought to be an affirmation. And not everybody can fit in Harambee House or State House. So why is it okay for a few political elite women to go and say we have a problem, but it is not okay for a majority of men and women in this country to occupy the streets? They are public. It is the reason we have 5 levies in our fuel, because our roads are public. How dare you? Shame on you, the police. Shame on you, the executive.
And it's incidentally on you know, the last day of the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. And then we've seen what we've seen today, Hussein.
Yeah, you're very right, Yvonne. And just to give the context, the importance of this day, after the Second World War in 1945, the United Nations agreed that we need to have a agreed set of principles that would declare each and every person on earth the same. So they devised what we now know as the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And it was adopted in 1948 on 10th of December. So this document, which is now, you know, universally accepted as the quote-unquote Bible of human rights, is what the whole world celebrates every year, that it has made us all equal. There is no state, there is no non-state, there is no male, there is no female. And each year on 10th of December, we celebrate the adoption of this very important document, because all other international human rights documents, conventions and, you know, protocols emanate from this very, very important document. So that's the significance of this day, that it's actually being marked across the world. Every country, every city is out there. And it's the climax, as you've correctly put it, of the 16 days of activism, which actually starts on the 25th of November. And to have Kenya celebrating International Human Rights Day in this manner, women are being killed left, right, and center. And the individuals, the police, who have the duty and responsibility to protect them from being killed, the same individuals are the ones who are now violating their constitutional right to actually go out there and protest about femicide. Is femicide happening in the country? Without a doubt. No one is questioning that. Did we see 42 women apparently slaughtered, chopped into pieces and dumped, in Kware? Yes, we did that. I mean, yes, we saw that. Are we seeing young girls right now presently being molested, being raped everywhere? Yes, we are. So what is wrong with people going out under Article 37 of the same Constitution, saying enough is enough. We want something done. We want action taken. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. But what do you get? A rogue police service that has absolutely no respect for the Constitution and for the laws of this land.
Hussein, you've borne witness, direct witness to some of the most pivotal or fundamental moments in this country. Without a doubt, June, July, perhaps, being the climax of that. We'll get into the details of some of those incidents, but what's your overall assessment of the state of human rights in Kenya today?
Wow, that's quite heavy. And I think the day, we've seen it today, basically summarizes what we have seen. For me, it's bittersweet. It's sweet, let me start with sweet, because this year, more than ever before, we've seen Kenyans coming out in droves, in thousands, to demand, that they must be heard. We have a government that was running amok, passing bills as they wish. Democracy was at its lowest. The people spoke up and said no to the finance bill, but we had a government that was, determined to go against the people's wishes. And we saw the people, particularly for me, the younger Kenyans, the Gen Zs, who came out strongly and said, you must listen to us. The Constitution is very clear. Article 1 says all sovereign power belongs to the people of Kenya. And they said, you as a government must listen to us. So this year has been so great. Look at the example of today. Women, this is a protest that was organized, everything was done by women themselves. Police tried to stop them, tear gassed them, and did everything they could, but the women remained strong and said, this is our country. And no police, no government, no single individual or any group will stop us from exercising our right. So that is sweet for me, because Kenyans have come out. And it's bitter because we've lost lives. We've lost lives merely for exercising your constitutional rights. We've seen institutions, the judiciary, for example, being totally disregarded. We've seen, the executive, simply just lambasting Kenyans for absolutely, you ask yourself, why are they so bitter? If you look at the example of Adani, I am very happy and proud that Kenyans said no to Adani. I mean, it has been confirmed, whether it's in the US or it's the FBI, that this institution or this corporation has issues. And the fact that, whoever spoke out and said, this is not right, to me, yes, he is a hero, because he probably stopped us from another white elephant. This could have been another SGR, billions lost. Anyone who is not happy at that fact and calling these individuals shujas must be someone who is not very okay.
And let's talk about that a little bit more, because human rights is also about economic rights, and I think that's what we've seen as the heart of what's been happening in the country. It's about equity. It's about access to financial services, access basically to the country's economy and inclusion. How do you see it from the Institute for Social Accountability?
Yvonne, luckily, it's always, we easily get into the political and civil rights versus, but luckily, when people started after the World War, they were all human rights. But if you want to see the linkage, Kenya has been downgraded from a space where we have obstructions in our civic space. Media going to the streets, speaking freely, to repressed. At the same time, our credit rating has moved by S&P to B-. negative, like the but
Out to CAA1.
yes,
Essentially junk status.
It looks very bad. You are borrowing at a very, very high interest rate. Today, the World Bank, though they say they should not be held accountable for the figures they have
IMF,
in there,
yeah.
The World Bank says our growth will be about 4.7. Really, really bad. And they say our sectors of agriculture will continue to suffer, and they acknowledge housing has gone down. The IMF was in Kenya to say, fix your mess. It is your mess. But it's not entirely our mess. Both those two institutions cannot run away from the fact that they are bound by human rights principles, and anything they come to support in a country, they, together with the country they are working with, the government, must assess what will be the human rights impact.
So what you're saying is the economic rights affect human rights.
They automatically affect human rights.
Right.
The strength of a government is in the ability for them to tax people. By the time it gets to a point where people are not okay paying additional taxes, the legitimacy of that government to protect all fundamental human rights is at stake. So you asked Hussein, what do you think of the state of human rights in Kenya? Human rights are protected, promoted, and fulfilled by the state. They're in limbo. There's no money. There's no money in the budget. There was reduction in the budget allocation for free primary education, for free secondary education. There was a reduction in the budget for health. It looks like 3.4%, but the critical sectors have gone down. Yet, the amount of money that Kenyans are required to pay has increased. Let me move to another socioeconomic right. Right to food. Food is more expensive. And the government has come out to chest dump and say, we will subsidize production, not consumption.
Yeah.
Yet that does not necessarily guarantee the right to food. Well, at it, they have allowed GMOs. So the cost of buying seeds and farm inputs will go up. They don't even care. They allow fake fertilizer. So that the few people who buy will also have problems. That's an area that has been heavily regulated. Farmers are required to register mung bean. From mung bean to rice to now all sectors. And now we are moving to the livestock industry. When all this happens, people easily start speaking about economic justice. Mm-hmm. When they get to the street, here it is not a lie. It's not an imagination of, which human rights are. Maybe dignity is, because dignity is very personal.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That one can be difficult. When I say they are violating my human, it can be, it's personal.
Yeah.
But when it comes to economic rights, we can all see there is no money in the pocket. There is no capitation going to primary and secondary school. So when people get to the street, they have a different conviction. That is why it was very easy for our youth to get to the street. When they come to the street, what do? You kill them. And once you kill them, you want to kill all the economic sectors. From labor, from manufacturing and agricultural sectors that provide employment for people to have income. Our value-added tax and income tax are on the decline because companies are shutting down. They say the recent statistics say employment went up. This last quarter, miracles have happened. But unemployment is still very, very high because this is not a country where you can invest. and feel like you will get the needed yields on your product.
Yeah.
Come to housing, even away from the cost. As we roll out this housing model, evictions are happening within 24 hours.
Yeah.
24 hours. Not even landlords are that inhuman. They allow you to lock your door to decide whether you're moving to your neighbor or to the village by giving you a month's notice.
So you're painting this nexus between them and how the lack of access to, basically the economy has an effect on human rights, on all aspects of it, from health to education, and the rights therein that are guaranteed, not just in the Human Rights Declaration, but in Kenya's constitution as well. So let's talk about, the work of civil society organizations, because that's also been a matter of question. In your view, Hussein, where are we with that? Are you able to do the work that you need to do? Many will remember the certain accusations and, of course, the turnaround with that. What a year it's been. But from the perspective of now the work that you actually do in upholding and maintaining human rights in the country.
Yeah, I mean, as civil society, we have, been complaining, and it has been very open, of a shrinking civic space. And what we are witnessing presently is, that space becoming further and further, shrunk by particularly the state. It was yesterday, was it yesterday or the day before, they deregistered, they said they've deregistered 2,800 non-governmental organizations. That speaks for itself. If you have issues with these institutions, these are institutions that you can easily approach, or you can summon, you can ask questions, you can have, give them time, as Diana was saying. Give people time if you have issues with them. But we've been seeing this every now and then. Arbitrary arrests. If you look at the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights report, over 1,300 arbitrary arrests in a period of like 5 months only, and they arrest you, they pick you up, and you ask them, so why are you arresting me? In one of those incidences, I was arrested. Like, we've just been told to arrest you. You're supposed to be arrested. We are awaiting orders from above. So our police no longer are, operating within the confines of the law. We have regime policing. They don't follow the law, they don't follow the constitution, they follow orders from above. If someone sitting somewhere up there tells them, go and arrest this guy, they don't question that. They don't ask, why are we arresting this individual? What has he done? Could you share with us any information, any evidence? No. You've been told, you blindly go and you do it. And this has been the problem that we have in this country. And I know we are discussing also socio-economic rights. It's very clear in Article 43 of the Constitution of Kenya. Speaks very clearly about the rights that Kenyans have, the socio-economic rights. But back to the police. You see, the problem with impunity that is being exhibited by our police service is really eroding not just human rights, but also democracy in this country. We've also seen how politicians have become targets, journalists have become targets, and there are yardsticks for measuring a democratic dispensation. And these yardsticks include institutions that function. Institutions that not just function on orders, but in accordance with the laws of the land. And when there is no accountability, you can never say that there is democracy. If someone owes their allegiance not to the Constitution, not to the laws, but Yvonne, she's the one, if I please her, the rest I don't care. That is an autocracy. That is dictatorship 101, because it's not the law that you follow. It's actually, is someone happy? Even if I make the deputy happy, the deputy will go and tell the person that this person has done well. And this is the problem we have in this country. This is the problem we have. I mean, if we were in a democratic dispensation, Masengeli would not be in office. I remember you did a piece, Yvonne, some time back on how many times he was summoned. And this person is still in office. Absolutely, ignoring court summons 6 or 7 times, I don't remember.
7.
And that is still an officer paid by yours and my taxes. Someone who completely disregarded the courts, you know, and because he doesn't care what you think, what the law says, but as long as he is, you know, serving someone and that person is happy with him, then the rest doesn't matter. Okay. And that's the problem we have in this country. Whether it's cabinet secretaries, whether it's, you know, heads of parastatals, they don't follow the law as long as they feel they are pleasing someone. And as I said, that is dictatorship 101.
And not a democracy. Diana,
Not a democracy.
The young people, I guess, gave us the wake-up call this year, June, July. Let's speak about that a little bit because, you know, it started with Gen Z, and now I know we're moving to, I've seen it being termed as Gen Zote now.
Yes.
Because now you've got, you know, all the other generations, you know, and now coming in to support this as well. Let's just talk about the role that young people have played in pushing for good governance in this country this year, at least.
First, I want to acknowledge that the young people, we never understood your game. And your vision.
Listen, it's that you were not familiar with the game.
You were not familiar.
The word is familiar.
Oh, sorry, we are not familiar with the game. Because first, they boycotted the elections. They knew there is no choice. There's nobody here who will guard the Constitution and lead this nation according to our values and principles. Instead, we told them, you people go away. When given wrong choices, they had seen it. The few who, they also took a lot of time to interrogate the promises of politicians. The youth have two things. They may read, they are accused of reading, but they have very innovative ways of getting the truth. And when they have the truth, you do not persuade them. So they are not our usual type that will go for a national dialogue and then they'll be persuaded, peace. No, their aspiration is justice. And they are extremely organized and convicted. They are also a generation that I really admire for how much they continue to pursue justice for the people whose blood was spilled. This government continues to underestimate that. But until there is justice for the 60 freedom fighters who took to the streets and were murdered, the youth have not forgotten. It doesn't matter what speeches you give. They are very clear that what happened was a coup by the political class on the civilian. And based on that, they have decided we will expose you every day. Didn't they lead us in their Adani exposure?
They did.
Yeah? It doesn't matter whether the minute they got the facts, they read for themselves. And they have hope, whether they have been to the airport or not, they will guard it. They will guard it with their TikTok, with their Twitter, waiting for the streets to be safe again. And they are also very clear that they are being stopped from, there is voter repression in the registration. The costs of replacing their IDs are renewable. They are every day doing this particular analysis. We work on both issues of debt, taxation, and agriculture. My colleagues in the office cannot keep up with the rate of analysis that the youth are analyzing bills in agriculture. Yet we think the youth are not informed, or they want digital jobs. They read and they know what we are doing to that particular sector. So it's first their courage, their conviction, and their level of research. So they are not easy to be to just sway. in any way. And for that, I really laud them. We've been engaging with the IMF. Today we engaged with them. It wasn't pleasant as Awaka Tisa and Okoa Uchumi, and we had disengaged. Then everything we had told them, they had it. They only had it or internalized when the Gen Zs told it in their language. And for that reason, even within the IMF, they can no longer say, oh, the Kenyan government only. They know the Kenyan youth are clear that this debt you're giving, or even the environment that the IMF is creating for everybody else to come and pour good money after bad, bad after good, and so on, it will be paid by the youth. For that, there's a shift. There's a shift that the youth are able to sustain. You will engage us respectively and with facts.
Okay, so
with facts. So there's all that shift. And now they are also aware we want to vet our own leaders. The youth are offended that there is no IBC. Because they are ready to recall these leaders that they never elected.
Like yesterday.
Like yesterday.
So tell me, in what way does that then create a shift, perhaps into what we want to see for the future, of human rights in this country? So let's cast our eye forward. Been a remarkable year of sorts, and I say remarkable, in quotes, because we've come out, but then there's also been some big clamping down on the right to speak in many instances. But if you cast your eye forward, what does the future look like now with the more engaged young people? And perhaps who are also pushing millennials and others, into that state. Are you hopeful about what we see?
I am extremely hopeful about what we see moving forward. For TISA that works on social accountability, for many years, we audited the Constituency Development Fund with a notebook. Right now, we are given dashboards that we follow. What we are telling them is, here we need to write to the auditor, they've not listened, let's go to court. It's at a different level. We've been holding things that are called debt monitors, citizen assemblies on anti-corruption and debt. And they're like, we don't sign communiques. We do not sign communiques. We sign community manifestos, scorecard that we will keep. We want action. We do audits that we hand over to the Auditor General. If that becomes the bar, no politician will ever move around with, nowadays they're moving around with 200, not 50 bob. They will move around with their mandate delivered par excellence. If we get to that level where every state and public officer is implementing what they ought to do, we will not only guarantee human rights, we will also have leadership and integrity. We will destroy cabals that exist in power. They have ways of showing up into spaces. You saw how they responded even to the president around the higher education model. Usually, whenever the crowd is mobilized by government, you expect that, it said when you're in the room, you can't throw the stone too hard. But the ability to consistently speak truth to power, we can only be a transparent state. When we are a transparent state, it doesn't take a foreign investigation for us to know this person should vacate office. It will change everything. It has given me faith that finally we will attain a human rights state, and the Article 10 values and principles were not something ideal that the people who got to bomb us gave us. And I don't know, anyway, this one I'll say at the end.
Okay. Hussein, in what way, even as we look to what the future looks like, In what way did June, July change our state of democracy, and what do you see as the future? I also know that June, July was a particularly hard moment for many in this country, and the aftermath as well, including you, who you saw humanity at its worst in some instances. You've witnessed post-mortem after post-mortem, attended burials, grieved with families. So tell us about June, July, and in what ways you think that changed the state of democracy in this country, and how it'll change things going forward, if at all.
Yeah, Yvonne, June, July 2024 will remain a watershed moment for Kenyans. And, I believe that it has changed this country for good. And as Diana has ably presented, we can no longer see ourselves going back to those dark days because of the sacrifices that were made in June and July by, young Shujas, the Gen Zs who came out and said enough is enough. Presently, there is a huge gap between the leaders, the present political leadership, and the masses. The gap is just so huge. And what we have is a situation where the masses want to move this country forward to the new, way of doing things. If you look at developed countries, for example, presidents are in their early 40s, late 30s. This is what we are having. These are people who can connect with the Gen Zs, people who understand the information era, people who understand social media. When you have people in office who are condemning the use of social media as a tool for holding leaders accountable, it basically shows you the gap that is existent within the country. And one way or another, sooner or later, something has to give. And there is no way that the masses will lose out on this. So the political leadership needs to shape up or sheep out. That is what the youth are saying. You have to come to our platforms. We will not come to you. You must come to us. If we are on social media, if you don't like it, as people would say it, enda ubust. Because this is where the people are. Yeah. And you have to come to us. And what we are saying is that the political leadership must understand this. I was in a meeting, Yvonne, with heads of missions, and one of the ambassadors said, as young leaders, you have to understand that the people you are dealing with do not understand this fearless, leaderless, tribeless. It just doesn't make sense. That's why you are saying, there was someone funding it. Someone must have been, they can't imagine, because for them, such huge numbers, there has to be someone who's giving out money and someone who's, so it doesn't make sense to them. Yeah. But these are people who have self-mobilized. This is a new way of doing things that the Gen Zs have brought up. And this is the system that the leadership now has to accept moving forward. And if you can't accept that, and when you say people who they don't want, it's not the injection or that's not it. Yeah. It's how is it coming? Where is it from? I mean, we don't want a dilapidated, airport. Yeah. Everyone wants a nice, fancy airport. Obviously, but who is going to do it? How is it going to be done? These are the questions that people are asking, and this current leadership does not understand that. They feel, no, it must be someone. That's why we are looking for everyone, and now it's Pepo Chafu. They don't understand it? They don't understand it. I believe they don't understand it because they keep repeating the same mistakes over and over again. I think the president had a moment, after he disbanded the cabinet, he said, I give in. We actually thought he would take advantage of that situation and bring Kenyans together and say, okay, I am here. I am listening. Tell me, people, what do you think I should do? Instead, he went and he co-opted the opposition. And now they're just ganging up the same politicians, the same individuals. So they're repeating the same mistakes over and over again. Instead of now using this opportunity, using this historic year to build on it, and move this country to that next level. Okay. They are messing it up.
I want to ask you one last question as we wind up, and I'll also pose the same to you, Diana. You've said there's a new way of doing things in the country. Maybe in about a minute or two, tell me where you see the country being. Let's imagine we have this exact conversation. 10th of December, 2025. Where do you think we will be, or where do you hope that we will be?
Well, one, I hope that the younger generation will take more charge of the country. We want to see this younger generation, this new way of doing things, getting into the institutions that are in place presently. For instance, we have commissions that are, opening up now. We have positions that are available that people can apply for, We hope that the younger generation, this new way of doing things, so that there is that accountability. When we are hiring, in the coming year or so, for instance, in the judiciary, we want judges who are young, people who have this new way of thinking, so that we can bring in new ideas, because for so long we've had the same individuals in power, and they are appointing their cronies to most of these institutions, and you'll find that you don't have the new blood, the new generation coming in. So in 1 year's time, I expect to have this country now, at least in the minimum, if we do very badly, in the minimum 50% of these positions belonging to this new way of thinking, these new ideas, and people who want to see change in our country. The era of former DCs and former PCs and that has to go. And we have to accept that as a country, we are leading this in Africa. It's happened in many other countries out there. In the West, you find very young, professionals in public offices. But in Africa, most of countries, we still have the old guards in this position. So in 1 year's time, I would expect to see that. Two, I would expect more like, informed citizenry. Because of the social media, and we have all this information, we don't just have lawyers telling us about the Constitution. We want everyone to sing about the Constitution. They know what it stands for. They know what a finance bill. I mean, who knew what a finance bill before this year? Right now, almost everyone knows what a finance bill is. So more an informed citizenry, people who understand what is happening. And then, of course, the third one, we need to have each and every pillar of the society involved. Participation. It's not just about men. It's men and women. It's not just about able-bodied, but also the persons who are living with disabilities, so that everyone comes in and feels that they own this country and they have a duty and a responsibility to play their part in developing the country. Hopefully in 1 year.
Hopefully in 1 year. I like the 3 points. Diana, what are yours as we close?
I think if we continue this way, in 1 year we will have a true oversight in the people. What happened when people took to the streets, and what is continuing to happen, is that Kenyans are not removed. They care deeply about this country. So I expect to see deepened organizing.
Okay.
That is backstopping every single process, because it's very clear. Part of why we are in the state of human rights we are in is the state capture of all organs of state and government. From the parliament is our biggest misgiving, the executive leads, the judiciary, sometimes we are not sure, and then the commissions, they're problematic. So in that process, the citizen will come and fill that void. It will not be hopeless. It will not be like, oh, they'll get away with this. No. Even before the next State of the Nation, they will have to listen. By that time, if they are not listening, they can't be our leaders. They will not be our leaders. Secondly, I expect that there will be a level of publishing of information by government voluntarily, because you had better publish it for us to analyze and give you feedback. That we will not listen to lectures. and beautifully scripted speeches. We will listen to facts and facts only. Then political parties that will be forming, this country has no political parties. There's a very high likelihood that we will, for the first time, get issue-based parties. Leaderless, formless, tribeless it wasn't just a tactic not to be arrested.
Yeah.
It was to say we will care about a certain cause. Certain principles will not be compromised.
Yeah.
Because look at ODM, UDA. They were supposed to be very different faction. We even tried to describe a very, very different. Orange and yellow were very close clearly, and now they are together in one basket. They just grew in different soil, but they're the same fruits. So there will be that very, very clear distinction. So the political class will change in readiness for the 2027 situation. For me, who works on economic justice, I am sure we will not get additional taxes, and we will go back to a point where we will not get undue additional taxes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anybody who is not paying tax, pay your fair share of tax, but do not come and burden other people. Then if they don't listen, there will be a clash. The power of the people and the political class will clash. Okay. But we must do everything to stop that, including the interference we are getting from, I think we were supposed to be in Maseno University tomorrow for a People's Assembly, and NIS had the ACK bishop is coming, and they decided we cannot go there to critique government. Surely government spaces are for critique, support, and constructive criticism. We cannot do that. We cannot allow that. We'll go to church tomorrow, but we will reoccupy our public spaces.
Indeed, that's a good place to leave it at, with some great reflections of the historic year that's been for human rights and democracy, and perhaps casting our eye forward in terms of, what we hope to see exactly 1 year from today, and perhaps a call to action to every individual in terms of upholding the state of human rights and democracy in this country. Thank you both very much for this conversation on this pivotal day. Diana Gishengo, who's the Executive Director for the Institute for Social Accountability. Hussein Khalid, CEO of Vocal Africa. Thank you both for being here. I wish you a good day and perhaps a good year ahead for human rights and democracy in this country and beyond. Thank you for watching The Explainer tonight. Have a good night. We'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.